Okay, we are officially live. So easy with StreamYard. So I'm Sandy.
I'm Chloe.
And this is WordStitch. Wow, I'm tired today, and I almost just wrote in "Hi Sandy" to like the chat box, but hi Spence and Melanie and Sarah. That's who's here with me. I don't need to say hi to myself. Jeez, Chloe, how are you doing today?
It's a day. I am here and ready to work or potentially continue fighting somebody on Facebook.
Oh,
It's not even like it is not a writing fight or a mask fight or a politics fight. It's actually about PCOS.
oh,
Um,
that's weird.
yeah. One of my friends posted, it was this innocent post. It just says if we all ate the same meals and did the same workouts, we would still all have different bodies. Um, and yeah, a fair statement. And this random dude replies with, well, yeah, but that's not really the point. Like, this is a statement made outside of any sort of context. Like, what do you, there's, there's not a point to be missed if there's no context.
Mm.
And then my poor friend who has PCOS said, well, I've been dieting, eating healthy food, and staying in that like 1,500 calorie range, and also swimming 3 hours every day for forever. She lives in Delaware. They live on the beach. Like, that's just a thing. And even taking like actual, I'm assuming she's on metformin, and because she just a medicine that should help with weight loss, and she's never lost a single pound. To which he said, well, you're an exception. And I jumped in and was like, she's not an exception. And now part
Oh.
of it is arguing about what he means by an exception.
Okay, you guys, these this has to be like the biggest pet peeve of all like women writers, right? Like men who feel the need to jump in and offer expertise about women's issues
Yeah.
that they know nothing about.
Yeah.
Um, don't do that if you're a man here writing. Like, let's not don't perpetuate
Yeah.
that.
And I pointed out the issue. I feel like it was somebody, I don't think she is in the room right now, but somebody I was talking to recently was saying that oh no, I don't think that was her case, but somebody recently was saying that like her doctor refused to diagnose her with anything until she lost weight. And this asshole, I pointed that out. Like, some people can't even get a diagnosis because of this. And he says, can you say for certainty that your friend was not diagnosed properly? Like, I literally just fucking told you she was diagnosed fat, and that they wouldn't do any other diagnosis until she lost fat. Like,
Oh, oh,
yeah. Like, she was
oh.
not diagnosed. She couldn't, you can't be diagnosed properly if you're not diagnosed.
So we're
Yeah.
gonna spend most of the day talking about how to self-publish, but
Yeah.
that's yikes. That
Yeah.
stinks. Um, we should do a whole segment on like random things that happen to women that people don't know how to write about. This is. I mean, that's gotta whoever writes a romance hero and who has PCOS. You never do this. Like there's
No.
no and yet
No,
like
because we tend to be fat and infertile. So
so your pregnancy line is gone. And also, you don't feel
yeah.
comfortable in your own skin, which makes
And
sexy like harder.
curvy only goes so far before you're just fat.
I disagree. I don't know. I'm in an awesome body positivity book club right now.
Oh, good.
Everybody should join one of these. So we can fight about how far curvy can go another time, but still, yeah, something. That sucks. I'm sorry you're in that fight. Okay, let's work that off with some writing. Try to,
Yeah.
get into that here. This is our prompt.
Okay. Gets a confusing medical diagnosis. We're going to write for the next 10 minutes. It is 5 after, so we will see you guys at quarter after.
All right, we are back. So did you get into the writing there?
No, I'm literally still responding to this asshole.
Okay, so if you're with us, hopefully you got into the writing there. And thanks for joining us. If you just came in, let's see. I think we've got a few people to say hi to. I got 350 words drafted. I'm feeling really good about that. I was drafting. I was drafting like a love at first sight scene, and I think those are like adorable and wonderful. So even though I don't believe in this in real life, I think it's cute to write. And Chloe is still responding to somebody on Facebook. But we promised a topic this time, so we promised to talk about how to self-publish, and I think that was Nikki who asked, right?
Yes, it was.
Am I remembering it? So I don't see Nikki here yet, but I mean, it's a worthwhile topic. So should we? Let's do that. Let's talk generally about like. Actually, here let's do this. So here's a question for you, Chloe, and I will answer it first if you are still typing. How did you get into self-publishing? Like, what was the thing that like pushed you there finally?
I said that thing while text. We also tried the if you have PCS, you just need to try harder. Like, no, that's absolutely not. I mean, it is true for some women, but also for some women, there's no amount of trying harder. You cannot lose weight without medical intervention. Anyway, so I attempted to get a couple of things traditionally published, and it never went anywhere. And that was years ago. And then like I had some sour experiences, not with the actual self-publishing, but other stuff, or with the traditional publishing, but other stuff in the industry that maybe say, you know, I don't need these people. And I definitely like, there are a lot of things that I wish I had somebody to do. Like, I definitely, like, I am not good at marketing. I'm not good at writing blurbs. I don't have the finances to pay for book covers. There are like a lot of places where I could really use a traditional publishing house. But it just was not, it was not in the cards for me. And yeah, so I just did it one day because Sandy had done it. And I was like, I guess I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And so here we are.
I suppose we kind of came at this similarly, but like I was more willing to be like, well, forget those people who think I need to be able to market. I'm just going to do this. So I was probably more reckless than you were about the whole thing. But I feel like this is like a really good part of this conversation, right? Because like you'll see people on forums, right? Like the Nano Forum or wherever it is that you're writing, and they'll go, oh, I want a traditional publisher because I'm not good at marketing. I'm not good at covers. I'm not good at blurbs. I need all this stuff.
Hey, yeah. There are a lot of people like me out there.
I think every writer is like that. Like, you don't become a writer because you're this like outgoing salesperson. You become a writer because you're an introvert who likes to spend time in the fantasy world. So I think that's important. I think it's like a, I don't know, like an aha moment where you have to be like, oh, wow, even if I were to traditionally publish, I still have to market my stuff.
Oh, so, yeah, that is part of it. Like, unless you are in one of the big five, and even if you are in one of the big five, like, unless you do well getting in, like if you get in on like one of those big deals, you don't have marketing. And that was also part of why I didn't mind so much when I went into self-publishing. once I had learned all that, I was like, oh, well, if I'm going to have to do all of my marketing myself, then whatever.
Yeah, yeah, right. So okay, so then you have to start asking yourself, so now like how do I do this, right? And so Nikki has said how, like just how do you self-publish? And I think probably the easiest answer to that is like you make an account with Amazon KDP and start filling in boxes. Like
Yeah. Yeah,
step
actually, like
one.
it's so easy. Like you just gotta make that book. And honestly, making that book is not that difficult unless you need to get fancy, but you don't need to be fancy.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And
It's
this is
actually physically making the file that is the book, not the book itself, but like, yeah. Like you just gotta do that and you gotta put it on Amazon and you gotta come up with your blurb.
yeah, yeah. And okay, so a few comments on here too. So Natalie says that she just went with it in terms of self-publishing. I think I feel a lot like this. Like I feel a little bit like I can do this. Like other people are doing this, I could totally do this. And same with Melanie here. Yeah, like do you want somebody looking after your stuff? But okay, so if an obstacle is like fear of not being able to market, I think you just brought up a really good point, Chloe, which is that the second obstacle is like fear that your book isn't good enough. Like I've written a book and I've had 80 beta readers look at it. And I have a critique group and they have gone through it all. And they still think it needs some work, but I feel kind of happy with it. Is it going to be good enough? And I think this is maybe one of the biggest things I wish I told myself years and years ago is the like, your first book isn't good enough. You should still publish it. Like,
Yeah.
because how else are you going to get better? Like
the reason that the first book that I published is the series I shouldn't have written. I was like, well, this is the dumbest and most like off market thing I will ever do. So let me get it out of the way first and then like get good stuff out there. So everybody could be like, well, that's her albatross because everybody has to have an albatross.
right? Like we spend and oh my gosh, writers are so bad. They say things to each other. Oh, I wouldn't put that out there. What if it's bad? What if you get negative reviews? What if there are typos? What if? Like, what if you never publish it and you never find out? Like,
Yeah.
what if you don't publish your first story and then like that means you don't write your second story, which means that you don't write the fourth story, which was going to be your bestseller? Like, I that's got to be huge. Just like huge. And okay, so here's another from Natalie. So true. We should cover this at like the entire next break. But
I will say for that it's important to clarify with that like you have to remember you're running a business if you want to be financially successful. Like you don't have to go into it with that mindset if you're just going to throw something on Amazon or like Sandy with your family, that book that they did that was just like a family book and whoever else wanted it could have it. But like, yeah. So yes, absolutely 100% I agree with Natalie that you have to treat it like you're running a business. But if you don't really care about money, then like don't let that stress you out. Or part of why I also say this is that Spence, it just flipping scrolled on me. Right after that, Spence said, the idea of publishing still looks so far away. The reason that I'm pairing these two together is that if you don't care about finances right off the bat, then it doesn't have to be that far away. Like you can put out, I mean, it's totally your own thing, but like you can be putting out novellas or short stories anytime. And like building that back catalog is great for when you do start putting out like major content. And again, as long as you have that very basic of like reasonable covers and reasonable editing in it, then it's fine to just throw that stuff out there without like an actual business plan, just assuming that you're not going to actually be making money off of it now, but like building that catalog.
And I think if you're afraid that it's like really seriously going to hurt you in some way, like publish it under a pen name, get used to the practice, because you might as well start. And like what worst case scenario, you keep that under a pen name best case scenario, you're amazing later on, and you claim all your pen name books under some one name. And like, I think so here's our lesson one for self-publishing. If there is any fear that you have that's preventing you from self-publishing, like if your reason for wanting to traditionally publish isn't something like, I am writing children's books and I want them to appear in big box stores, or I'm writing literary fiction and I feel that I need a very comprehensive editing process to create this masterpiece that probably isn't going to make me a ton of money, but matters for art. Like, if it's just, I'm afraid I'm not going to make money, I'm afraid I'm not good enough, I'm afraid I can't market, anything else, like, your fears they're not real. You should destroy them. You should destroy them. And we should write now, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we're going to pause that. We're going to come back to this, though. So we're going to write for the next 25 minutes. We are just a little bit late, so it's 26 after. So we are going to come back to all of your comments and some good writing at 9 of.
Okay, we are back.
Yay.
Yes. Also, I'm looking at the comments. And Spence, that headache. Seriously, I sincerely wish you pain-free evening and maybe some like good Tylenol over the next few minutes.
Sinus headaches are the worst, I say, as somebody who doesn't have migraines. I understand that migraines are probably worse, but as somebody who doesn't have them, sinus headache is one of the worst pains I've ever felt.
I get all of them. I get sinus headaches. I get migraine headaches. I get tension headaches. I get like the whole gambit of them. It's a different kind of pain, but it's still pain. So
I had no idea what it was. One of my friends had to be like, that just sounds, you just have a sinus headache. And I was like, what? My face is exploding.
I had a terrible, my husband and I went to Hawaii like 10 years ago. Oh my God, I've known him for way too long. That just made me feel really old. And on our way back, I had a sinus infection. He swears to me that that was like the most dangerous flight we were ever on, that like the plane was all over the place and there was like a thunderstorm and like terrible things were happening. And I was like begging the flight attendant for pain medication.
They won't give you any.
Oh, they did then. I must have looked really bad.
They refused me the one time. I've got an issue with kneecap pressure, and flying back from Vegas, I thought my kneecap was going to explode, and like they wouldn't let me pace the aisles. They finally let me like stretch out in their little area to like work it's a fluid issue, so they let me do that. But I mean, it could have literally been that they had no aspirin on board. I guess that could have been it. But yeah.
I mean, it might be some like very kind nurse, or sorry, a flight attendant. Yeah. I'm sure I was thinking of them as nurses at the time. Just found like her own personal stash of Alka-Seltzer, and that happened to. But man, yeah, like those things are terrible. I later felt like if the plane had just gone down, I wouldn't have known. Like I would have.
It would have been the perfect time.
Yeah. So glad to those of you who are getting some stuff done. I got 6:45, so I'm pleased with that. We've got people rereading and getting dishes done and doing all kinds of things. So good job. Chloe, are you still agitated about Facebook? Are we still?
No, I don't know if you saw my private chat, but the person who actually started the post, like the one who posted the thing about dieting, she finally responded, and she has PCOS. She's undiagnosed. And yeah, so I feel like that shut things down pretty well. I did reply to her. But so I'm done with that. I wrote 405 words, which I'm just starting this project. So I wasn't expecting a whole lot of words, and I'm kind of rambling right now. So I feel okay with what I've done.
Well, I am glad. Yeah, the Facebook. Well, we can rant about that later. We should talk about self-publishing right now, right? Yeah. Like we should go back to that, because we were actually having
there are a ton of comments that we never got to up there.
There are, and I think but yeah, and it looks like we've got a lot of people in pain right now. Gosh, which we wish. I think we both wish we couldn't relate.
Yeah.
Oh,
here we are.
Was it Right with Melanie told Spence not to push yourself too hard? Okay, so this is good advice, right? Like there are times when you can't get things done, and it's okay to let yourself be where you are when you have this kind of pain. If you are with us on the self-publishing thing still, I think one of the things I wanted to go back to was the whole business aspect, because we may have different perspectives on this, me and Chloe, because I actually started an LLC for my publishing business, and she did not, which is valid either way. I mean, like you don't need an LLC to publish a book. But I do think it's useful, like if you're thinking about the money aspect, to see if, like, to think about, to think of your writing as a business, and certainly, like, so Chloe does way better than I do with budgeting, regardless of the fact that I was the one who started the LLC. So I think I was much better with that this year. But that's something I think is really important, that like wherever you are, if you're going to start an LLC, if you're going to actually have a business, or you're just going to like treat this as like a sole proprietorship type thing, I mean, you need to know how much you're spending, right, and how much you're bringing in. So,
and really quick on that, you
yeah.
have to know you're going to take a loss the first year. Like, you have to know that you are not going to make back unless, like, you work some math. Like, we see people constantly saying, "Oh, I've had my book out for 3 weeks and I've already made $20,000." And like, that is not a normal experience. And usually it's because they have some following already for whatever reason, or they dumped a ton of money into it and they probably are still not breaking even with all of that money. So that's something, just be prepared that like I mean, Sandy and I are both in the red for, I'm sure, a very different amount of money. But like you just have to accept that you're not going to make back what you spend unless you like really hit magic on your first book.
And I think sometimes people ask this, oh, how long will it take, right? Like how much should I have saved up? I think you need a source of income. Like, you need a source of income for the first 5 years. That is what I would guess. Not like a writing source of income, because unless you hit it just real lucky. And also, like, to do that, you really need to be publishing all the time, right? So one of the comments above, I think, was maybe from Alley Cat, about how often do you have to publish if you like start doing it with a traditional publisher. I don't know with traditional publisher, but with self-publishing, certainly, like, you do better if you're publishing all the time. But then, like, let's suppose life gets in the way.
I will say I do know a little bit more on the traditional publishing side. It's all in what your contract is. They will so you will like have to, like, even though you get a contract, you still have to like submit every book you do. Like, you still, like, obviously it's not so stressful the first time around and you're not trying to find an agent anymore or any of that, but like you still have to go through that whole submission process to get your book published. And they, like, depending on the terms of your contract, most likely you will be told like how often they want a book from you. And there's not a lot of flexibility in that. Now, you can go through a couple different houses to get more, but like, I know from the Jess Michaels podcast that one of the reasons that she went self-publishing out of traditional is because they were only letting her publish every 9 months.
Oh, that would kill you.
And she is a prolific writer. She's got 75 novels. So it's, so for traditional publishing, it is whatever they tell you, but also you're not so beholden anymore to your publisher. You can go through multiple publishers. You can also hybrid. That is what a ton of traditionally published authors do now, is they just also self-publish. And the nice thing with that is whatever branding you get from your traditional carries, obviously, like if I've read you when you were with HarperCollins, I'm not looking for HarperCollins, I'm looking for your name.
Yeah. But okay, so in fairness, wherever you are, like, if you want to be making a decent amount of money and you aren't traditionally published, wait, that didn't make sense. If you want to be making a decent amount of money and you aren't traditionally published, you're going to need to publish often, like as in a couple times a year at least. So, I mean, and you can have your own schedule. There are people who go slower and get lucky, but not everyone. So
I mean, you have to go at the pace that you go at, but like, if it's there's only so much you can do. Like, you should always, I feel like it's not a bad thing to say that you should always be striving to go a little bit faster than you are. And really that's more efficient. Like whatever it is that makes your process more efficient. But some people will never be able to write 5,000 words a day. Some people will never be able to write 1,000 words a day. And that's you. Like you can only go at the pace you set. Like there's don't try to break something that isn't, you know.
Yes, I agree. And I mean, it's just something to take into account then, right? So it might take you longer, I think, to actually make money. We are already at 5 o'clock. So here, in honor of our pain discussion.
Yes. All right. We are ready for the next 30 minutes. We are again a couple minutes behind. That seems to be the theme of today. So we will see you guys at 32 past.
Okay. So that was like 10 words short of a 1,000-word, 30-minute thing for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have a total now of 1,080 words, but that's over both sprints. So,
But you had Facebook drama to
or
begin with.
over all sprints. Yeah. I didn't participate in the first one at all. And then, distractions in the second one as well. Yeah. So to Allie's comment there,
Wait, which
Allie
one?
is asking if you have to be on a schedule or if you have constant deadlines when you're publishing. And Melanie pretty much has it right.
Wait,
If
let's
you're
make sure
self-published,
we've got the question right. So this is this the question? Sorry.
yeah, it goes over like several comments.
So just for everybody watching then, so it's if you publish a book, regardless of how you publish, will you be expected to have another deadline for another book to be finished after that? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So if you are self-published, you make your own deadlines. I happen to be working on a series right now where all of the books take place at specific holidays, and I want to get the money that you get out of holiday books for it. So like this series, I'm absolutely publishing the books right before the holidays. So that is a deadline of sorts, and it's a deadline that I gave myself. You can on Amazon, I believe we're up to a year now. You can set your books up to be pre-ordered up to a year in advance. And that is another form of deadline because if you do not get that, they have changed it. They used to penalize you very hard if you did not have your book ready by your pre-order date. They've changed that, I think, because of COVID. But you still you really have to meet that deadline. So that's another deadline with self-publishing. And then of course, like telling your fans when your book is going to come out, that's another sort of deadline, but actually you have no deadlines. They are all entirely self-imposed.
I think that's part of the problem, right? Like, because
I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just,
right,
that's
there's no judgment there. But I'm going to judge it as a bad thing.
Because, it can be, absolutely. If you, especially like if you have a problem with like jumping from project to project and like not finishing something before you move on to something else, yes, it's a big problem. I am struggling with the last book in this current series. The good news for me is that it's a Valentine's book, and I was hoping to have it out at the beginning of December because the first book in the series is a Christmas book. So I was hoping to like get a rollover on the Christmas book by having the Valentine's one out and then being able to box set it at that point. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it now because I've been struggling with that, but that's okay because I actually gave myself if I published it at the beginning of February, I'm still good. So that is self-publishing. If you are going through a traditional publisher, it is absolutely at the publisher's discretion on how they do this. So like there's no set in stone rule for it, but in general, as far as I understand it, they give you deadlines and you don't have a whole lot of choice in the matter. Especially like if you were doing series, they're going to tell you this is when we want the next book in the series to be written. If that is something that is a problem for you, like normally they tell you like once you get a book written, you should start querying it if you're going traditional. But if you think that's going to be a major problem, that like if you have a second book that goes behind it and it's not written, if you're worried that like you're going to break down on the stress of that, because a lot of people do, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's not necessarily a terrible idea to wait until you've got at least a good start on the second book before querying the first one. However, that process tends to take a really effing long time. So yeah, so it's not something that you really should overly worry about but like sometimes there's dumb luck. I was just listening to an author today who said that she like had her agent and then an offer within like 2 weeks of each other because of how fate
Wow.
aligned. Yeah. So this can happen, but it's very much an outlier. But yeah, they
So rare. I feel like it was so uncommon to have to worry about that.
yeah, just some people have like weird pressure things, so I'm just gonna put that out there. That being said, though, it really is all dependent on the publisher. I have a feeling, like, I've never actually looked into Karina's policies, but if you're looking at like Karina is or I guess Harlequin in general, I feel like with them, they're like an entirely a submission basis thing, and so you really don't have to worry so much about deadlines, but like deadlines are absolutely an issue that happens in traditional publishing.
Okay, so here, this is my lawyer head coming out a little bit. I don't know how this works in traditional publishing. Maybe if you're in traditional publishing and you're the author and like, the publisher is the one with the contract that you're supposed to sign, maybe they have all the power. But I think if I were ever to manage to get into that situation, I'd be real careful about reading that freaking contract because, like, yeah, sure. I mean, they could put deadlines in there, but usually a contract is something both parties have to agree to. So at the very least, like, you should be able to say, yes, this schedule works for me, or no, it doesn't. Now, the question is, will they agree to what works for you? Who knows?
Right. And there's a couple of facets, I guess, on that, because also like once you have agreed to it, if you then fail it, like that deadline still exists whether you did not agree to it or you did agree to it.
But
so no. I mean, like, whether they're forcing you into that deadline or you have said, this is what I want my deadline to be,
okay,
that
so here's
deadline
what I'm
still
gonna say.
exists.
You can't be forced into a deadline, like contractually.
No, but you can also lose your contract if you don't agree to it. So that's what I'm saying. I'm sorry I don't use the right terminology. I don't know why we're back into this discussion again for after last week. But if they force you by saying either you sign this or you don't get a contract, it really doesn't matter where it comes from. It's still a deadline. And it's still something that you have to meet. And they don't like it if you get too... like there's absolutely flexibility in it. Like most authors are not fantastic with meeting their deadlines, but it does, you don't get contracted for the rest of your life. You get contracted for a couple books at a time. And if you have issues with it, obviously it makes you less desirable to them.
And keep in mind, again, that we are both self-published, not traditionally published. So like neither of us have gone through this process. You'd have to navigate it with your agent and your publisher and see what happens. But I mean, okay, so sort of back to how to self-publish kind of like generally. And I don't know. I mean, we could talk about this for a while. Like we could do screenshots of Amazon KDP next time and such, because there are so many forums. But there were some comments way up above that about like self-publishing reasons, right? So things like having control over what you write, writing something that doesn't historically get published, writing for the sake of like let me go back through this. The comments are a long time ago now. But starting an LLC because you want to edit professionally, or write for other people, like ghostwrite, or like you're in pain, you have chronic pain, you don't want a traditional publisher to control your schedule. So like maybe that's a reason. I think those are all really valid too. Like I can think of like 100 reasons to self-publish, and I can only think of like 2 reasons to traditionally publish. And I think that's a really interesting thing, right? Like, why would you traditionally publish? And I really seriously can only ever think of, you want your book in a brick and mortar store. You're going super literary and you want Oprah to look at your book. You're a gold star person, and you need the valid blah, blah. My brain is not working. Validation of somebody else saying that your book is amazing. Chloe is muted. Why is she muted? Did I do that?
My roommate was yelling at me.
Got it.
So I didn't think you needed to hear the conversation about dinner.
No, that's okay. But so do you have any other reasons why somebody would traditionally publish? Because we're almost at our next writing time anyway, and we can
What
we
was
can
the
talk
question?
more about it.
Sorry.
So any, like, can you think of any other reasons to traditionally publish? Gold stars, brick and mortar, you want Oprah to have your book. Those are my three.
And because you don't want to have to do the covers and the blurbs. And you want the team. From what I understand, at least, of course, like everything I know comes from a romance industry, but apparently they have a very strong community within it where like all of the authors kind of feed off of each other. So like there's a lot more of the, the like newsletter swaps and all of that. They do, like, I don't know if any of you follow many authors on Facebook, but like the ones I know who are traditionally published, many of them frequently put out like shout outs to other authors. Larissa Ione every single week puts up a list of all of the books that were published in her house that week. So
well, interesting. So you get a little bit of a team. Although, okay, so argument in favor of independent publishing.
Oh yeah, you have to pay. Like you're not getting those book covers and blurbs and marketing and community.
No, right. So, but I suppose I don't know. I mean, you have an extreme amount of patience. You're willing to wait 3 to 5 years to see if your one book will be published and if that one book will have a blurb and cover written for you. I mean, that's a thing. But the hybrid route is also there for you. So you could do that and then in the meanwhile self-publish, and that would be a real valid alternative. We have been behind this entire time. I feel like we should catch up right now. Like maybe we should just start our sprint or get prepared for it.
Yeah.
Let's do a free write. Free write and finish up those scenes and such. And we can talk more about logistics of self-publishing next week, especially since I don't think Nikki was here today, and I think she's more concerned about like, how to.
She's not even here.
Yeah, we're talking why to, not how to, right? We can do how to. Yeah. All right, let's get this thing started.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys in 10 minutes.
Okay, we are back. Spence noted that we are attempting to legitimize self-publishing, and yeah, totally fair enough.
So I read her comment a little differently. And I could be wrong about this, but I feel like what she's saying is that like all of the perks for traditional publishing are going away. Like they just don't exist anymore because of the push for self-publishing. Yeah, so publishing houses kind of cannibalize themselves. When everything started to switch to digital, the traditional houses did not follow immediately, especially the big houses. They didn't go onto that immediately. They thought that Kindle was like a flash in the pan, kind of like Blockbuster. Remember when Blockbuster killed itself because of Netflix? There's an extent, like certainly there is an extent where like we have ditched traditional publishers, and so they're like losing stuff because of it, but also they're kind of doing that thing where they focus so much on a couple of the big things that they ignore all the small things. They also can't keep up with market trends. So there was a long, like before we had self-publishing, we had this issue where the publishers themselves decided what was popular. The readers could to an extent, but like if you wanted to publish something that didn't exist, they wouldn't take it. Whereas now, if you publish it, you might be able to find that genre and it might end up being huge. That's kind of the issue with paranormal romance now. And I'm sure that there are a lot of other examples. That's just the one that I know. We were talking, I feel like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, the historical romance from the 20th century. They refuse to touch that now, but actually it sells pretty well. So yeah, part of it is that like, so certainly just like every industry, perks are going away in traditional publishing.
I think, I agree with you. Okay. And also I think we're biased. I think we think this, but we need to keep in mind that because we don't traditionally publish and most of our circles are indie publishing writers, we're actually not 100% sure that like the perks are going away. Maybe you get a great deal. There are all kinds of perks and we just aren't privy to them ourselves.
So this is true. I have spent like hundreds of hours listening to podcasts on this. From people actually in the industry, and it sinks in. And certainly like they don't, like I'm not going to say that they don't talk about the good things with traditional publishing. They do. And I've said a lot of them, but from like the traditional published and the hybrid to are doing well, a lot of them say things were great 10 years ago and not so much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the same stuff you have. And I mean, personally, I feel like we could just sort of like look at the industry and say like things are going digital right now. Like there's a reason you're seeing bookstores go out of business. There's a reason that like, there's a reason that independent bookstores
we're losing the bookstore perk.
Yeah.
We literally have Walmart now. Like if you're something that Walmart will carry, then Harlequin's a good way to go. But yeah, kind of all that's left at this point.
Well, I mean, there's still the Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
There's still independent books, but even independent bookstores, I mean, independent bookstores can't afford to carry self-published books in most cases. Yeah. So like they're sort of, I mean, they're on like the other side of an indie author, which is something that like you don't realize because you want to support independent bookstores, right? We believe in those things. And then at the same time, they can't support us. And that's not like a personality clash.
No, they just have to have the book. Like they've got so little space and they're taking in so little money that they have to take the things that are going to sell the most. And of course, those are the things that are getting the like $150,000. Why am I blanking on that term? The money they give. is that term though?
But-
It doesn't matter, but yeah, that's why they're all stocked up on like Stephen King and Nora Roberts and the big names, because they're the ones that they know that they can sell those books of and make that money that they need.
And even
so
if
it's not their fault. Yeah.
Right. Even if they didn't have an inventory problem, they'd have a pricing problem, because most self-publishers have to price their books higher because they're just more expensive to print.
That too.
So that it's hard for the independent bookstore to actually sell that book. Like your $15.99 YA book isn't going to compete with the $8.99 book that has significantly better press. So no, I mean, I totally agree with you, Chloe, that like everything I've seen out there indicates that the industry is moving, and this is like a move with your cheese kind of thing, right? Like our cheese has moved, and we now need. Has anybody else read this book? I love this book. Our cheese has moved. We need to move with our cheese. Our cheese is becoming indie publishing.
Yeah,
that's how it goes. And then at the same time, like I feel like if we were two traditionally published authors, we may have a different perspective, right? Like we might have, and for those people getting those contracts right now, like awesome, good for you. Yeah. Go get them, Tiger. Is that?
Be careful of the vanity presses, though.
Be careful of vanity presses. Is it still appropriate to say that? I just suddenly
Be
felt
careful
like
of the vanity presses.
No,
yes,
go get a Tiger part.
Oh.
It was acceptable like a couple years ago when it happened in Spider-Man, but like now I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up. Anyways, so maybe next week we can do some nuts and bolts instead of just some we'll share some screens even. Do some stuff.
Do that.
Yeah. It's 6:02, so we got to let everybody go. Thanks for being with us, y'all. It was it's fun for us to have these discussions. Reinforce our feelings about self-publishing. And we'll be back next week, same time, same place, same everything. Even though it's Labor Day, because we're not that exciting, apparently.
Oh, it is Labor Day.
Do you have Labor Day plans, Chloe? Do we need to change things?
No, my Labor Day plans were Dragon Con.
So come here instead of Dragon Con. It'll be fun.
Yeah. I guess they're streaming a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know why. I guess I should probably like ask Vanessa what the hell's going on, because she's still doing stuff, but I don't know why, because there's no Dragon Con. But yeah, I'll be here next Monday. What else do I have to do?
So Kaylin Rivers is streaming right now. If you want more sprints, thank you, Devin. And thanks to all of you for joining us. And we will skip Dragon Con virtually next week. Come hang out with us.
Yeah, whatever.
Do whatever you want to do. We're glad to have you here in whatever capacity. So we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks guys. Bye.
Bye.